And if you're using like a free QR code generator, like you're not going to know if it gets shut down. You're going to have to be constantly checking on that QR code to make sure that it still works.
Hey everyone, welcome to the S.O.B Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the S.O.B that you are, and if you haven't figured it out yet, we mean small-owned business. We don't mean S.O.B.
Listen, we know that as a small business owner, you are working hard on the daily to keep your business fully operational while trying to promote it. And while some days it may feel like the business is owning you, if we're being honest with each other, I bet you would admit that you wouldn't give up the insanity for anything.
Our commitment here at the S.O.B Marketing Podcast is to give you the real talk, what works when it comes to advertising, marketing, promoting your business, and then what doesn't really work.
And Chelsea and I promise to always keep the conversation real. Hey y'all, hey Chelsea, we're back for episode 11 of the S.O.B Marketing Podcast.
Exciting, and we're reunited together again.
And it feels so good, doesn't it?
It
does. I do miss you when you're not here in person with me.
I do too.
Yeah. It just changes the environment a little bit. But so today I want to start off by reminding everybody that if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, please do so. I promise you, we are going to be delivering some really juicy future podcast episodes. We have a very good friend that's going to be joining us not too far in the future. So we're really amped up and jazzed about that.
I know, I'm so excited.
Let's kick off today's episode with a little story time. So Chelsea and I have the most random conversations, and sometimes when she's telling me a story, what she thinks is the intriguing part of the story is not what is actually intriguing to me. So not too long ago, you were telling me a story about how during a hurricane, well, the story started off with relation to QR codes. That's what we were talking about. But after she told me this, I was laughing really hard because my sister and her boyfriend are the only ones who would decide to go out to eat during a hurricane.
That's not true. There were a bunch of people there.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what you were telling me?
Yeah. So back in 2021, there was a hurricane. We live in South Carolina, so there was a hurricane. That's normal. We are at this time 23-year-olds, so of course we're not prepared for a hurricane. And the power went out. And so we both said, okay, let's go out to eat, because we didn't have anything to eat. Which also, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure our place has a generator, so it shouldn't have mattered because the generator would have kicked off.
Look, I mean, listen, I'm glad you now remember this for future hurricanes, because yeah, that's kind of a big deal. You can have power.
Okay, well, that doesn't matter. The point is, we decided to go out to eat. It's a hurricane. So we both had just assumed that the other person had their phone. Neither of us had our phones.
And let's clarify, because when I forget my phone, quote unquote, it usually means my phone is in the car and I've plugged it in, to my whatever car settings. And so I just go back out to the car and grab my phone. You left your phones at home.
Yes, our phones were at our house.
That is so weird. Like, how many people leave their phones at home now?
We just didn't think about it. So we both left. So we're out in the middle of a hurricane. Neither of us have phones. But it was fine. We were fine. And we got to the restaurant, and the waitress sat us down and then just left. And she didn't give us any menus. And we were confused. And then we realized QR codes, right? It's a QR code that's on the table. Neither of us had a phone. Right. So we were kind of like, okay, I need a menu. And the lady came back a while later, ready to take like our entire order. And we were like, we don't have menus. Like, we don't have phones. So, and she had to find us a paper menu.
Which, yeah, that's kind of, it's really funny because what it reminds me a lot of is it puts into perspective how much the world has changed and what our expectations are. So imagine 20 years ago walking into a restaurant and, well, you, you would have been what, like 5 years old, so you probably wouldn't remember. But walking into a restaurant and having the waitress sit you down and then just leave and assume that you know what to do, like without menus or anything like that, that's unheard of. That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago, much less 10 years ago. And so I think it's interesting that COVID kind of forced this change onto people to where now it's just this unbeknownst thing, like we don't even talk about, that you're expected to pull out your phone, scan a QR code, and pull up the menu for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's where our topic comes into play today. So we're going to be talking about QR codes and just some of the advantages that they bring to small businesses. And also, you guys, teaser, but you're going to want to watch to the end of this episode, or listen if you're listening on podcast. Listen to the end of this episode, because we are going to be introducing the future of marketing.
Ooh, yes. We're going to be talking about AR codes.
AR codes, y'all. You heard it here first. Actually, you probably did not, but but we're gonna touch on it a little bit, because we want you to be prepared for where this is taking us. And as small businesses, we want you thinking ahead of how potentially in the future you could use this newer technology to promote and to make more sales.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so before we get into AR codes, let's take a step back and talk about QR codes. So if you're a small business owner and you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable about using QR codes, they are the way to go. I mean, more and more people are using them. I do have a stat here. So in 2022, approximately 89 million smartphone users in the United States scanned a QR code on their mobile devices. And that is up 26% compared to 2020.
That's really interesting, because so here's the thing. QR codes were around before COVID, like you're saying, and I think it was one of those things where people took as like, oh, this small business is trying to be really like fancy with the QR code, right? Yeah, like it wasn't widely used. And what pressed the issue, and I'm not, you guys all lived through COVID, you all know where we're going with this, but really what pressed the issue was the fact that then the restaurants, if they were to stay open and keep their doors open, they had to show that they were putting these protocols into place, right? Which meant not having a physical menu anymore. And so I think what was interesting is then people are showing up and it just becomes the norm. Like your patrons are now just saying, I already know what to do. Like I take my phone out, I scan it, I look at the menus, and we're good to go.
Yeah, and QR codes are here to stay now, even though we're laxing back on COVID restrictions and stuff like that. I don't want to say COVID's over, but we've kind of gotten over that hump. So also, usage of QR code scanners is projected to experience constant growth, and it's projected to reach over 100 million users in the US by 2025.
So they're saying it's growing.
It's growing. It's going to continue to grow.
And so that's what's interesting too, is I feel like now with, okay, so let's talk about some of the advantages, right? So for QR codes, they are not specific to industries like restaurants. As a small business owner, no matter what your small business is, you could get creative about the way that you utilize QR codes.
I have an example.
Okay, tell me.
So Bray, one example is, I believe we've already spoken about this, for leaving reviews. We have posters with a QR code that you just scan. It pulls directly to the dialog box to leave a review. But also for pricing list.
Yeah.
In recent years, prices have fluctuated, and she offers a lot of services, so it just doesn't make sense to print out pamphlets anymore. Yeah. So we've created kind of like a web link on Canva, created a QR code for that web link, and that way we can just display that QR code, and whenever someone wants to look at all of the prices because maybe they're interested in a different service, they can just skim through it with that QR code.
That's a really great use, because the thing is, and I will say just from my personal experience in other industries, having to constantly update information gets to be such a pain in the butt. And I think that's because you're wanting to be sure that you're putting out there the most current information for your patrons and for your customers or potential customers. And the thing is, if those service lines are having a fluctuation, whether that's in pricing or in anything else, then you're having to incur the cost of printing material, reprinting, and then also the amount of time that you're spending having to update every single other thing that's linked to that. But as Chelsea's saying, is if you have something where instead you're utilizing that same QR code and you're just updating the file or the web page that it's linked to, it makes it so much easier, because you can literally pop on there, change it right now, and in 2 seconds, it displays the correct information to change. Another way that people could creatively use QR codes is, let's say that you're in an industry or your business is constantly pumping out content or information. And let's say that's in the form of YouTube videos, or let's say you have videos, instructional videos on your website that you want people to reference. You could easily utilize a QR code for them to scan, and it automatically takes them to the video. And so what I'm thinking is, this is a great application for some of the products that may be a little harder to use. So maybe if you have a product that requires a lot of instruction or that requires some type of assembly, then
Oh,
maybe
okay.
this could help with that, right? Because you would put some type of promotional material, or maybe even on your website, say, scan this code, and then maybe when they scan it, it takes them straight to the, not on their website, but on the,
On the product
on
itself.
the product itself. Yeah, it takes them straight to the instructional video. Yeah.
Oh, I love that idea.
Or, I mean, even if you're telling people what not to do with stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking off the cuff here, like applications for different types of businesses. So let's say if you're a boutique, whether you're a
Okay.
clothing boutique or let's say a home decor boutique, you could also generate a QR code that you put on stuff for weekly deals. And then you can change
Oh.
and update the weekly deals on that. And so that way it kind of conditions people to know that, hey, every time I scan this QR code, I get the latest deals and the stuff that's on sale this week.
Oh, I love that too. That's a great idea. We're talking about uses, applications. The true appeal for QR codes, specifically for small businesses, is going to be your metrics. And you hear us talk about this all the time. You need to be gathering data, you need to be looking at it. Market research is so important. So, for small businesses, a QR code is going to be a great way to gather that information, because you can go on the back end and pull all of those metrics from that specific link.
And if you want to take it one step further, because small business owners, you guys are marketers, right? You market, you do marketing and handle your marketing in-house all the time. And so part of what you could get really creative with is, you never run just one campaign at a time. You have the capability with these QR codes to create as many QR codes as you'd like, and you can attach a particular QR code to a particular campaign. And so then, in order for you to properly see the overall performance of each individual
Yeah.
campaign, which one worked, which one didn't, which one you want to scrap, you could go in and pull the QR code analytics for each and every one of them. And so what's interesting about that is, because it does link directly to like a website that you manage, on the back end, you can also pull the web page analytics for that as well. The one thing we do want to mention, because we want you guys to be responsible with people's privacy and people's data, and we want you to know what the downside is to go on a QR code. Well, let me start here. Chelsea, you want to utilize a QR code for your marketing. What do you do? What are the steps that you take to generate a QR code?
So I personally use Canva. We love Canva. I love Canva.
Well, and listen, they've added that capability, a couple years ago to be able to generate a QR code on there. I think a lot of people don't know you can do that.
Yeah, you can. That's where I generate all my QR codes. So I go ahead and create the design in Canva as well. So that landing page. And then from there, you can go in and create the QR code as well. Add that QR code into your design, and you can just print it out. It's so simple. It's so easy.
So listen, if you guys have a Canva account and you are using Canva to come up with some of your marketing material and you did not know that you could generate a QR code in Canva, but you are interested in doing that and you have no clue where to start, email us. So you guys can email us at help@theseasonmarketer.com and we'd be more than happy to
Yeah.
send you step-by-step instructions on how you can generate that.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, so I go on Canva. What we don't do is go onto Google and type in free QR code generator. And I'll tell you why.
Big no-no.
You don't know anything about these websites. You don't know what privacy they have. You don't know their security, what they're doing about security. And you don't have any, they don't have any of the liability because it's free. So you have no idea what's going on the back end with your QR codes. Now, Canva is a paid service, so we use Canva because we know that they're going to be secure and they're going to be really up to date with their privacy. Now, one of my best friends, Maya, she is a computer science engineer, and she's really big about knowing what you're scanning when it comes to QR codes. I mean, we were walking down the street in downtown Charleston, and there was a sign on a telephone pole. I don't remember what it said. It was something random, and then just a QR code. And Maya was like, "Don't you dare! You don't know what that is." So I'm not saying that that's going to happen with you with your small business, because you'll be in, your small business. Make sure that you are coming across as professional, and you'll be more trusted than I want to say this was typed up in Word and then just like a random QR code. Don't do that. But
I will also personal advice, never look for a roommate on a telephone pole. Like if you see one of those signs that's like roommate needed, call this number. Don't do it, Chelsea. Don't.
I already have a roommate. It's fine.
Yeah, well, Maya, for very good reason, brings that up because you are absolutely right. The thing is, a lot of times, these people will set up these websites to generate free QR codes, and people will think, awesome, like I'm just going to throw my, link in there and then generate this code. The other downside to it, so for one, you don't ever want your potential customers, you don't want to put them in a position where their data can be exposed to someone who's not going to do good things with it. And so you just want to be responsible if you are going to leverage and utilize QR codes for your marketing materials. Please either use a paid QR code generator like Beacon Stack. And if you guys are interested in using Beacon Stack, then definitely let us know. We can send you a link for, to their website and just kind of a walkthrough of all their stuff. But use somebody like a Beacon Stack who's well known and who you can legitimize their company. You could go in and they have a lot of data on them, so you know exactly who the company is. And then, or utilize a platform like what Chelsea does, and she's already paying and using Canva. So just take advantage of the fact that Canva now allows you to generate those QR codes, that the platform is locked down and secured.
And honestly, like, let's say that you personally don't care that much about privacy or security. I promise you, your customers do. And if something happens with their privacy or their information or anything like that, they're going to lead it back to you. Like, even if it's not your fault and it's the free QR code generator, they're not going to know that. They're going to say it's this small business's fault that my privacy has been violated.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that on your shoulders for sure. And why even risk it when you can just, I mean, Canva's cheap, y'all. It's what, $12 a month if you do the monthly plan. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, just do something like that. The other thing too, the other downside that a lot of people don't realize is when you use a free QR code generator, because I told you that these businesses are not legitimate a lot of times, they can easily just shut down their website. And so what's happened is, and I've actually had this one time when I used a free QR code generator where you go in there and you put the link in there. And so learn from my experience and please do not do what I did. But they can shut down the website. And so then your QR code isn't going to work anyways, right? So like that's why you don't do that stuff. Like it's not good for your potential customers. And it's also not good for you because you cannot in good faith say that you know for a fact that QR code is going to work a year down the road. Because the second that they decide to take their website down or do something different with it, or just take it down or reuse it for something else, it's just not going to work. So,
and if you're using like a free QR code generator, like you're not going to know if it gets shut down. You're going to have to be constantly checking on that QR code to make sure that it still works.
Yeah. It's not a good thing to use. It gives you a lot of, I think, unneeded, unnecessary stress when you could just utilize Canva or just use Beacon Stack or a paid QR code generator.
And before we get into AR codes, I just want to touch on and mention, going back to Tim and I's crazy hurricane story. Sometimes people don't have phones. Maybe they don't own a phone or maybe they forgot it. So if it's something really important like a menu, if you're a restaurant, just have like 1 or 2 printed copies for people like me who are out in a hurricane without their phones.
I'll take it even one step further and say, y'all, don't completely do away with stuff. Like, here's my thing. As a small business owner, I cannot build products and services or market products and services the way I want. I have an audience. I have someone who I am trying to sell to. I need to kind of bend over backwards to be sure that I am presenting them with information the way they consume it.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll give you a perfect example of this in healthcare. A lot of healthcare is moving towards automated and using technology, right? There is a group of people who will not check in via a text. Okay. They just don't want to do it. And so you cannot force people to do things. You have to give them options. Now, you can try to steer them as much as you can to get everybody to utilize that text check in. But if someone approaches you at the front desk and says, I don't want to mess with my phone. I don't want to input my data into the phone. I just want a good old fashioned pencil and paper. So may I have a regular check-in form? You need to have those available. Same thing like you just said with the menus. If you're on the off chance going to have people that do not want to scan stuff on their phone, or maybe they forgot their phones, or for whatever reason, they just don't want to do it. So have menus, printed menus available. So it is never a good practice to just completely do away with stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, not related, kind of like every single time that I go into Walmart and they have all of their lanes closed for having the, what do you call it, the attendant there to check you out, they're forcing you to utilize their self-checkout. Sometimes I don't want to be forced to use that self-checkout.
Well, and you know what? Now Aldi here, I'm not going to locate myself, but the Aldi that's here now has self-checkout and they only have like one person like actually checking people out, but they don't stand there. Like they don't, so you have to ask. Well, what people do when Tim and I go grocery shopping, people will just stand there, load all their stuff and wait for someone to come by because they don't want to do. If Tim wasn't with me, I wouldn't use self-checkout. I would put all my stuff there and wait for someone to come help me because I can't. There's too much stuff. No, I don't want
And
to do
see,
it.
that's the whole thing is my whole thing is like, I get it, y'all. We're trying to be, and we're about to talk about like technology evolving. So we're all about technology evolving, but we cannot forget as small business owners who or why we do what we do. It's for other people. It's not for us. It's not for us. Vivian's preferences have no say in how she needs to be communicating with people. I mean, like, the style and all that, but at the end of the day, I cannot force people to purchase my product and service if I'm trying to get them to fit my
Yeah,
mold.
and I mean preferences are weird too. So like me personally, I'd much rather do self-checkout. Except for when I'm grocery shopping because I have too much stuff. But in any other scenario, I don't want to talk to anyone. So I want to do the self checkout. So just having options is also a
Well, not
great.
just that, but what really gets to me is I don't mind self-checkout in general. I just my whole thing is like, it's just weird that businesses are suddenly expecting nobody. Like, how many customers do y'all have on the daily, and you don't think anybody would prefer to go to a lane where someone's going to be checking you out as opposed to you doing it on your own? And so here's the other part of it too, and not just that, but y'all, I can't imagine also how many people are stealing crap, whether purposefully or not. Okay, like, if they forget to scan like the Pepsis on their, bottom of their cart or something. So I don't know, it just seems weird. But my thing too is if I'm buying a bottle of wine, you're gonna have to come over and I have to
Yeah.
stand there anyways and wait because you have to input all of my, date of birth information. And so it's just kind of like unnecessary. The point is just take your customers or potential customers into consideration whenever you're doing stuff like this. Don't completely eliminate one thing. Now, maybe over time you can phase stuff out completely, but just know that if you're not going to have printed menus or stuff like that available and you're forcing people to utilize their phones, you may get someone every once in a while that's like, A, I don't know how to do this, or B, like, I just don't prefer it, so I'm going to go elsewhere. Now, let's get into talking about the fun, juicy stuff.
Ooh, so we're going to discuss AR codes, which are the future of QR codes.
What does AR stand for?
So it's augmented reality.
Yes, y'all, we've taken it there. We're talking about augmented reality. So.
Yes. So I wanted to find a definition to explain what an AR code is. So I'll read to you what this is, what I found on the internet. So this was what Google gave me. An augmented reality QR code is a QR code with a marker for AR.JS that redirects the user to the AR web app or mobile app. So this meant nothing to me. So I went to Maya, my best friend, the computer science engineer, and I said, "Hey, will you explain this to me?" And she said it's basically a QR code that creates a 3D image when you scan it and then turns on your camera and puts the image in your environment. So basically, it can be used to help your consumer visualize your product.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a funny story about something similar to this. And Hector, my brother, so
Also,
Tarika,
my brother.
Hector, our brother, we've mentioned this before. Alex, my husband, gets on to me because I always use possessiveness when I'm referring to stuff. So I'm like, my mom, and he's like, why don't you just say like our mom? I'm like, no, because she's my mom. Like, yes, my brother. Tarika, if you're listening to this, ask Hector if this is true or if I'm rewriting history here. I remember Hector one time worked for a company who they did this. I don't know if it was a yearly thing. It was a competition. It was a way to try to motivate people to come up with ideas, innovative ideas. And so you present your ideas. If you got first place or something, they would give you like, I don't know if it was like $1,000 or something like that. So, a pretty nice little bonus. And what he was talking about, if I remember correctly,
She
is
probably doesn't.
he was talking about this AR stuff though, because it was Overstock, I believe he worked for at the time, which is a furniture company. And so what he had talked about doing was if you didn't know whether this little table was going to fit in the corner of your house, you basically would put like a white piece of paper there, turn on your camera phone. It would be able to kind of see the space that you're trying to put whatever table you're looking at. And it would like superimpose it onto, you had to have the white paper because I think it had to have something to read on that end, right? And it would superimpose it into the space.
Okay.
And that was kind of like an idea that he had.
That's exactly what AR codes are.
Yeah,
That's what they like on Amazon. Maya was buying furniture, and all the furniture, like you'd scan the AR code, and it would superimpose the furniture into the area so that you could see how it would fit.
Yeah. So the weird part is, if I didn't make that up, my brother could have been a gajillionaire,
That's
or
what I was
maybe
about to
someone
say.
else.
You're basically saying that Hector created innovative technology and then didn't get credit for it.
Well, I don't think he ended up presenting it. I don't like, I think he went with a different idea, but I kind of remember because at the time he was in, I believe in Salt Lake City. And I remember talking to him on the phone and I was like, dude, that's brilliant. Like that, like if I could tell before I bought something whether or not it fit in my space, like, that would be great, because that's the hardest thing is I don't want to have to measure something and then have to go back and then buy the wrong thing accidentally. And not saying that Hector like created that, but because I'm sure that technology has been in play for a while, having to hash that out and get it to where it's viable, because it's still a little clunky. I tried it last week, and of course I'm going to try the fun stuff. So basically, I basically did an AR code that would put a little mini dinosaur in front of you. It's very, very cool. Also, you could do one for a car. And one of the companies was trying to utilize like having a spokesperson. So here's an application for, let's say, any type of small business that maybe wanted to explain a product. So they had a lady, so I'm assuming that they got her on video or something and maybe kind of converted her video onto something that they could then display in there. But so what they would do is basically you select the lady and then she starts talking about the product. So it's getting creepy, but imagine the stuff you can use this for.
I know.
Okay. I mean, like it's amazing. So outside of furniture though, I don't know, maybe if you had a jewelry store.
Well, I was going to say, like, I think this is really going to take off, especially considering how popular online shopping is.
Yeah.
Maya and I were talking about this, and she brought up a really good point, which is that this is going to be great for small businesses who don't have a physical store that sells specifically online. So that way consumers will be able to actually visualize their products.
Well, and like I was saying, maybe let's say you sell jewelry, right? And I don't know whether they're earrings or bracelets. I mean, you could utilize AR to bring those bracelets onto the table so that way I can see what it looks like if if I'm kind of weird about whether or not it's something that I want to purchase. So it can help people with over that hump of like if they're teetering, should I buy it? Should I not buy it? Perhaps visually stimulating them and bringing it into their space is going to help. But,
and I think this is still related. A lot of makeup companies are now doing like try on this lipstick.
Interesting. Now, here's the thing is with the AR that I've tried, you actually have to point it out. Okay. So like you can't point it at yourself, but maybe that's something that
I don't know. I haven't actually tried any of these.
So think about it. Okay. So back to the jewelry example. If I want to see how a necklace falls on my neckline, how cool would it be to turn that camera around and to be able to see it visually on myself?
That's dangerous. Do you know how much more stuff I would buy? Because I can see it. I'd look so good in this. It'd be a problem.
I mean, well, but that should get you excited as small business owners. Like, y'all, this technology is going to change the way that people are going to shop. And it's also going to give you additional leverage to be able to show them because there is limitation to a website. The thing is, and even on a website, so let's say furniture now. When you get on there and you're about to buy furniture, they now have these 360 videos where you actually, and it costs money to produce stuff like that. I mean, you basically have to take a product and you're either placing it somewhere by itself and the camera is moving around it. So you have to have a camera at all angles and something to move that camera. And so it gets expensive to do stuff like that. So if you're a business that's utilizing that type of technology, I guarantee you that this AR stuff may over time replace that or just be in addition to it. And who knows? I mean, I'm sure it could be a little cheaper maybe than what we're currently doing. So I'm just curious to see where all this kind of goes.
Ironically, really bad at telling dimensions. Game changer for buying furniture. It's like this is 9 feet wide, and be like,
Why do you think I'm almost
I don't know.
like I'm over a year in a house and I've bought no blinds because I'm almost scared to measure and go buy the appropriate blinds. I just know I'm going to buy the wrong size. I know it. Like I just know myself well enough. So yeah, I hear you on that. So we're curious. Why don't you guys tell us if you think the AR codes are creepy? Or if you've used them before. And if you haven't used them, then we strongly encourage you just to go in there and play around. If you don't mind giving companies access to your camera, that's the big thing. Is I do think so. We spent a bulk amount of time talking about the legitimacy and non-legitimacy of some of these websites to create QR codes. Guarantee that we're going to see issues in the AR code area, area as well. And
Yeah,
so that's going to
100%.
mean, yeah, so that's going to mean that you guys are going to be really cognizant, want to be really cognizant about who you're utilizing to create these AR codes.
And
For you.
I mean, that's true with anything when it comes to technology. You just have to be cognizant about who you're using.
So, bet
Okay.
over or under Canva coming out with an AR code feature in there. Do you think that will happen in 12 months, or do they need more than a year to generate that?
I think they're going to need a more than a year, because I think what they're working on, and they're probably tweaking it and trying to add more to it, is that AI feature for creating written content. So I feel like they're going to want to massage that and really make sure that it's a beautiful application, which it is. Honestly, it's great. If you want to know more about Canva, right? Or is it Canva Magic? It's Canva Magic, right?
Right.
I think we did a video on it. You might want to check that out, but it's a great feature for helping you create written content, and it uses AI. I think that they're going to massage that first before they go into AR technology, but I think it's coming soon.
So interesting. And if you do want to see that video that Chelsea's referring to on how to utilize or what Canva's Magic Write feature is with incorporating AI and helping you with prompts, it can help you with creating blog posts, it can help you with all sorts of stuff, y'all. It's a fun tool that you could utilize.
I'm telling you, I love Canva. It's like a one-stop shop for all of your marketing needs.
I don't know what we did before Canva.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. But, okay,
it was a dark day.
Yeah. It's like you came out of the cave and you're like, to your point though, with the AR talking about they'll probably need over a year. I agree with you, except for the fact the only thing that kind of makes me think that they may be able to launch something sooner than that is the fact, I don't know if you've seen this feature. You can actually create your own photos. So here's the thing. Chelsea and I just finished up a course called Rock Your Fair. So if that's something, if you guys are out there attending events, craft fairs, pop-ups, and you need help with just kind of a process and getting all that together, we have a course that you can now buy to walk you through all these steps.
It is 6 modules. It is everything we have learned over the 15 years that both of us have been doing events, fairs, that sort of stuff. I mean, learn from our mistakes, please.
Yeah, no, you don't have to go through the tough part. We went through it
Yeah,
for
we
you.
went through it so you don't have to.
Exactly. But in there, when we were doing the course, I was looking for I had in my mind a particular image that I wanted to use on one of the presentations. And so I was looking through their photo library and I didn't see anything that I liked. And I found this feature that basically is like you can create your own photo. So what you do is it's an AI generated photo and you prompt it and you tell it what you want in the photo. So I said,
This was in Canva?
yes, I'm going to show you exactly where it's at.
Oh my God.
Now, here's the thing though, asterisk,
You've sold it too much. Okay, go ahead.
asterisk. Some of the photos look a little wonky. So, so I don't know that I would actually use all the photos it generates. But it is pretty cool because like what I did is I put in there the prompt was I wanted a lady holding a tote bag at a farmer's market
Okay.
or at an event. And so the better you are with the prompt that you give it, the better it is at generating something. Now, it generated a photo for me, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't end up using it because I was like, oh, you could kind of tell that it doesn't look quite right. Like something about it doesn't look right. But I'm sure that maybe that was because my prompting was not as great. So, playing around with it and figuring it out would be really exciting. But that's the only reason I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if they're working on that technology, on perfecting that, on perfecting this other AI feature with the Canva right or Magic right, they may be closer to
Okay.
being able to put the stuff together.
I'd like to change my answer because I didn't know about that feature. Now I'm gonna have to go after this and spend the rest of my afternoon playing around with this. But I mean, okay, maybe they can get something out in 12 months.
All right, so we're going to have to revisit this episode in 12 months and see if we were right or wrong about it. So I'm going to say it'll maybe be right under a year, but who knows? I mean, plus, I don't really know, and Maya might be able to talk more about on the technology side what all is required from that. Because I guess the thing for me too is like what as a small business would you have to supply the generator? Because right now what you're doing is in order to get a QR code, you input the link. And so basically all it's doing is forwarding. It's a photo that forwards you to a link that you are in control of. So I guess
You've created, yeah.
yeah, so I guess that's the thing is like, okay, in order to generate an AR code, am I going to have to send them an image, a 3D image, a video? Like, what am I sending them? What file am I sending them so that they can then do what they have to do on the back end to superimpose something in front of me?
Well, maybe in 12 months, Maya will know everything about this too.
Yeah.
And it'll be great, perfected technology, and we can bring her on and she can explain everything to
I
us.
know a little better. Awesome. So if you guys have questions that you want us to answer about AR codes or stuff like that, then please send it to help@theseasonmarketer.com and we can, try to just kind of plan ahead for that stuff. All right. So I think that's the podcast today, Chels.
Oh, I loved this one. I love technology. I grew up in that weird time where like we had a computer room
At school or at home?
No. Well, at school too. Yeah. But then like we also had VHS.
Do you know what a floppy disk is?
I know what a floppy disk is. I never used one.
Like, have you ever held a true floppy disk?
Are
Like
they?
the floppy ones, not the disk, the floppy ones.
No, I've held the ones that like are the save icon. You know how the save icon is like a floppy disk, but like they're hard.
No. When I was in elementary school, we literally had these little disc that I don't even know now, like, I don't know what material they made it out of, but that's why it's called a floppy disk because
It
it
was
was much
floppy?
bigger. It was like this, and you literally could shake it and it just like flops back and forth. And so I'm like, I don't even know how that technology would work. Like, why would it? I don't know. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next week. Remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday, and please share this information with any small business owners or forward our podcast to them so that we can just continue to go out there and educate people about what's coming down the pipeline.
Absolutely. Go try out a QR code and be the best SOB you can be.